Beach Planning Commission. My name is Bob Thornton. I serve as the chairman of the commission. Before we get started, I'd like to ask Commissioner Oliver to lead us in prayer. This will be followed by the pledge by Commissioner Horsley. Please stand.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today thanking you for your guidance and wisdom. As we begin this hearing today, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Help us to remember our responsibility to serve our community with great insight, guided by understanding, wisdom, and respect for all. As we make our decisions today, help us to promote the common good as we work together for the betterment of our great city. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic with which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners Oliver and Horsley. I've asked Commissioner Weiner to introduce the members of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Starting on the far end is Kay Wilson. She is our city attorney. Next is Jack Wall. Jack is a civil engineer, and he represents the Rose Hall District. Next is Dr. Karen Beersley-Kwanzi. She is a professor of literature, and she represents the Princess Anne District. Next is Don Horsley. Don is a farmer, and he is at large. Next is Ron Ripley. Ron is in real estate management and development, and he is also at large. Next is Jan Rudzinski. Jan is the secretary of the Planning Commission. She is in property management, and she represents the Centerville District. Next is Bob Thornton. Bob is the chairman of the Planning Commission. He is in sales and leasing and development, and he represents the Lynn Haven District. Next is Dee Oliver. Dee is our vice chair of the Planning Commission, and she is a funeral director, and she's at large. The empty seat is Jeff Hodson. Jeff is in real estate management, and he represents the Beach District. Sitting next to me is Mike Inman. Mike is an attorney, and he is at large. My name is David Weiner. I'm in commercial sales, and I represent the Kempsville District. Next to me is Dave Redmond. Dave is in commercial real estate, and he represents the Bayside District. And sitting next to Dave is Carolyn, and she is in charge today. She's our boss. And can you introduce your staff, please?
Certainly, thank you. We have several clerks that are going to assist us today and some in training to help us keep track of our votes and the record today. I have Pam Sandloop, and then Carol Dozier, and then we have Delina Cartwright and Cole Fisher. And we have planners and other city staff that have assisted with the preparation of our projects, writing the staff reports. We have Jonathan Sanders, Jimmy McNamara, Kathy Warren, who is the director of the SGA office, Kevin Kemp, our zoning administrator, and behind Kevin we have Christine Gay, Robert Davis, Ashby Moss, and a special guest, Rick Lohman with Traffic Engineering, Marshall Coleman, and Stephen White.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Before we get started on the first order of business, we heard this morning in our informal session that Dr. Stephen White is retiring from the Planning Commission. And on behalf of the Planning Commissioners, we would like to thank you, Stephen, for all the work that we've individually done with you over the years. Stephen has, I think, 28 years with the city and 4 more years in the Virginia retirement system. So he has spent over 30 years working as a public servant, and for that, Stephen, we thank you and we wish you well, and hopefully you'll be back as a consultant and you'll be bringing clients before us in the future. And we just do thank you for that. The first order of business is the explanation of the rules that we use to run our meetings. Commissioner Rudzinski, our secretary, will explain the rules.
Thank you, Chairman Thornton. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all understand how the Commission normally conducts its meetings. It's equally important that each one is treated with respect and civility for those members and the Commission. The Commission requests that if you have a cell phone to please silence it or turn it off at this time. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. A complete set of the rules can be found in the front of the Planning Commission agenda for today. Following is the order for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there is a request for withdrawal or deferral on the agenda. Those items will be made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items which the Planning Commission believes are unopposed and have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The Commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. Please note that action taken by the Commission today is in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision for approval or disapproval of any application is made by City Council. The Commission thanks you for your attendance. We hope that your experience here today makes you, lets you leave feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rosinski. The next order of business is to address those items to be withdrawn. If you have an item that you would like to withdraw, please come forth. The chair has been made aware of item number 3 to be withdrawn. Is there any opposition to this matter being withdrawn? Hearing none, I would like to ask for a motion that to approve this item being withdrawn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that item number 3 be withdrawn.
Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Horsley. Call for the question.
The vote is open.
Mr. Inman, may I have your vote?
Sorry.
By a 10-0 vote, the commission has approved the withdrawal agenda.
Thank you. The next item are to look at the items that are to be deferred. The chair has been made aware that items number 8 has been requested a deferral. Is there someone here to speak on that matter? Is there any opposition to this matter being deferred? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to defer item. Well, let me do the other one too. Number 9 is also a deferral. Anyone here to speak on that matter? So is there any opposition to number 9 being placed on the deferral? Hearing none, I would request a motion to defer items number 8 and 9.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that items number 8 and 9 be deferred.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Rosinski. Vote is open.
The vote is open.
By a 10-0 vote, the commission has deferred items 8 and 9.
Thank you. The next order of business is we will address those items that have been placed on the consent agenda. The Vice Chair will handle this portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, we have 17 items on the consent agenda. The first matter is agenda item number 1, and this is an application of K.F. Stanley for a conditional use permit for a home occupation commercial kitchen on property located at 312 Indian Avenue in the Beach District. Is there a representative for this application? Would you please come forward? Hi. If you just come right up and speak into that microphone.
Okay. I
And-
thought I was loud enough.
Will?
I'm Kay Stanley, and this is my daughter, Dina Sawyer. And we have the Prissy Pickle Company, and we make pickles. So we're asking to put a commercial kitchen in our house, my husband's house and my house, on 312 Indian Avenue. We have read all the conditions, and we understand them, and we will abide by all. So
Thank you.
we also brought pickles to hand out to everybody, but Carolyn will take care of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
So,
I heard they were wonderful.
thank you.
Do I get to keep the bag?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very kind.
Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Weiner to read this into the record, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Oliver. This is a conditional use permit for home occupation commercial kitchen. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a home occupation to operate a commercial kitchen in the attached garage of the property. The commercial kitchen will be approximately 400 square feet and will include 3 sinks, a stove, a refrigerator, and a work table for the production of canned pickles. It is anticipated that no customers will be coming to the site to purchase products, as all products will be sold off-site at local farmers markets and grocery stores. The applicant and her daughter will be as sole operators of the kitchen. No other employees will be for this operation. Staff has recommended approval, and we put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 2. This is an application of Evergreen Virginia LLC as the applicant and the property owner for a modification of conditions and a conditional use permit car wash on property located at 240 and 248 North Lynnhaven Road and 2865 and 2893 Virginia Beach Boulevard in the Beach District. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Thornton, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Commission. For the record, Billy Garrington, on behalf of the applicant, Evergreen Virginia LLC. I think there are 10 conditions that are attached with this conditional use permit request. We're in total agreement with those conditions, and we thank the staff for putting this on consent.
Great. Thank you. Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Inman to read this into the record.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. This is as stated before, this is a conditional use permit request and a modification of conditions, and it has to do with property that's immediately adjacent to the checkered flag operation that faces Virginia Beach Boulevard to corner Lynnhaven Road. They've acquired this property behind them, which is sort of a triangular piece of property, 2 acres. The surrounding uses are on one side some office use, on another side some residential use across Lynnhaven Road at that point. It's already zoned properly for this type of use. So this, the conditions that will be placed on this because of its proximity in part to the residential is the 10 conditions, which include all repairs and painting have to take place inside the building, and car washing, of course, inside car wash situation. There's, no tires or merchandise can be displayed on the outside, no outside paging, and outdoor lighting will be shielded and restricted to 14 feet in height, and no decorative pennants and lighting. So that are the conditions. For those reasons, we put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Inman. The next matter is agenda item number 4. And this is an application of Ishwar LLC as the applicant and property owner for a modification of conditions on property located at 5924 Indian River Road in the Centerville District. Is there a representative for this application? Hi, would you come up and state your name, please?
My name is Vikash Chaudhary, and we are owner of this this property. We already have conditional use permit for 4 parkings for this rental, and we are just adding 4 more.
Great. And are the conditions that are set forth in your application acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Rusdinsky to read this into the record, please.
Okay, thank you. As stated, this is a modification of conditions. The conditional use permit for automobile sale, service, and car wash was approved in 1988 for that site. Since that time, the site's been developed with a fuel canopy, fuel pumps, a convenience store, and a car wash. In September of 2017, a conditional use permit for motor vehicle rentals for up to 4 box trucks was approved by City Council. With this submittal of this request, the applicant originally requested 18 box trucks, but after discussion with staff, he's modified that request to 8 total box trucks on the site. As depicted on the submitted site layout, the rental trucks will be parked on the west side of the convenience store and next to the car wash building. With the existing operation, the customers will rent the vehicles from spaces within the convenience store, and the proposed hours are 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. In staff's opinion, this use is compatible with the surrounding commercial uses. The number of parking spaces on the site exceed the number of parking spaces required by 14. Therefore, the display of up to 8 box trucks for rent will not impact the ability of both customers and employees to safely access the fuel pumps, the convenience store, the car wash that are already on the site. Condition is recommended that specific location of the 8 box trucks in order to limit the visibility from the right-of-way. For all of these reasons, the staff has recommended approval of this application with the conditions listed, which are agreeable by the applicant. Therefore, we have placed this item on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 5. And this is an application of Glasser Enterprises, Inc. for a conditional use permit bulk storage yard on the property located at 2584 Horse Pasture Road, located in the Rose Hall District. Is there a representative for this application? No? Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Weiner to read this into the record, please. No, sorry,
Yeah.
I skipped.
Well,
Commissioner Wall.
Thank you. This is a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard. In 2012, a conditional rezoning from Ag 1 to Ag 2 Agricultural District, conditional I-1 Light Industrial District was approved by City Council to allow development of the 25-acre farm property as an industrial park. The proper rezoning for the entire industrial park was modified in 2004 to reduce the setbacks along London Bridge Road. The applicant currently occupies a 16,000 square foot building. Upon seeking a zoning verification letter from the zoning office, the applicant was informed that a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard is required to store spas and other equipment associated with the business on the exterior of the site. Based on this information, the applicant is requesting conditional use permit for bulk storage yard on the rear of the property. The approximately 10,000 square foot bulk storage area is currently enclosed with a 6-foot tall chain link fence with aluminum slats. The applicant is seeking a deviation to the required Category 6 screening, which is a solid 6-foot tall fence with shrubs surrounding the bulk storage yard. In lieu of a solid privacy fence, the applicant intends to install plant material outside of the existing chain link fence that has slats in it as a means of screening the materials from London Bridge Road. In staff's view, the proposed bulk storage yard is compatible with the surrounding industrial uses and the land use policies for the Special Economic Growth Area 3, South Oceania. Staff recommends approval. There's no opposition. Therefore, we place this item on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall. The next matter is agenda item number 6, and this is an application of Logan Virginia Properties, LLC for conditional rezoning of B2, A12, and R7.5 to a conditional B2 on property located at 5441 and 5473 Virginia Beach Boulevard, located in the Kempsville District. Is there a representative for this application? Is there any opposition? Oh, sorry. Wasn't sure. Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Good. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Finkel, and I'm Senior Vice President of Rooms to Go, and this project is to bring a Rooms to Go showroom to Virginia Beach.
Great. And are the conditions set forth in the application acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Weiner to read this into the record.
Thank you. This is a conditional rezoning. The subject 4.32 acres that are proposed to be rezoned will be reconfigured to 2 sites, reconfiguration from 2 sites. The applicant is the contract purchaser of the 1.77 acres from Gateway Free Will Baptist Church and 2.7 acres from Byler Azalea LLC. The applicant plans on combining these acres into one parcel and rezoning to a conditional B2 for the purpose development of the site with a 44,685 square foot retail furniture store. Access to the site is proposed via 2 points, ingress and egress along Virginia Beach Boulevard and 1 point ingress egress along Toy Avenue. The parking spaces proposed for the site exceeds the maximum number permitted by zoning ordinance by 50 spaces. A large BMP is proposed in the rear of the site to address stormwater needs. A more detailed review of the proposed strategy will be completed at the time of the site plan review. The proposed building is a contemporary design with plate glass as the main exterior building material. Staff recommends approval and we put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 7, and this is an application of ACC Property Solutions, Inc. as an applicant and the property owner for conditional rezoning A12 to conditional R5S on property located at 1602 Cypress Avenue, located in the Beach District. Hello.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney representing the applicant. This is actually a conditional rezoning to downzone, and we appreciate the efforts of Mr. Kemp. It's unusual circumstances that are present here, and Mr. McNamara as well. Appreciate being on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Ripley to read this into the record.
As you heard, this is located on 1602 Cypress Avenue. It is a downzoning from A12 to an R5S. The property is currently improved. It's a very small piece of land. It's only 37 by 60, and it's improved with an older house that's been there for almost 80 years, and it's not in really good condition. And this is really a nice addition to the neighborhood, and the single-family house is being proffered to go back. The current size of the site is only 2,200 square feet. The applicant needs front yard, side yards, and minimum lot, some variances in those areas. When we felt that was very appropriate, the buildings have been pulled close to the road, but actually it's got a little better setback than the existing building, and the side yards are a little better than they were from the older building. But it's by far a very nice development because it's a two and a half story. I heard somebody describe it as a 3-story, but it really looks like to me a 2.5-story wood frame building that's compatible with the neighborhood. Be a nice addition. Staff recommended approval. Planning Commission felt that it ought to be put on consent.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 10, and this is an application of D&S Williams, Inc. for a conditional use permit, an automobile repair garage on property located at 113 Pennsylvania Avenue, located in the Bayside District. Is there a representative for this application? Hello. You state your name for the record,
Damian
please?
Williams.
Great. Are the conditions set forth in the application acceptable to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Redmond to read this into the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, this is a conditional use permit application for an automobile repair garage, which has operated on this site for a number of years. It's a very small site. It's about 1/4 of an acre and has operated apparently without incident. The operator, however, was unaware of the need for a conditional use permit and has been working with staff towards that end. There were 2 issues which the staff identified and are addressed in the conditions. One is the existence of a non-conforming sign, which is to be removed, and any sign that replaces it then must conform to the city code. And the second was some very minor deficiencies with regard to the parking. Again, it's a very small site, small number of parking places, but nonetheless, there is a parking requirement. That's a condition as well, and it appears that should be easily met. There is no opposition. The staff recommends approval. We agree and concur by consent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 11. This is an application of Kelly V. Gentry as an applicant and the property owner for subdivision variance section 4.4B and D on the property located on the west side of Vaughn Road, located in the Princess Anne District. Is there a representative for this application?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Kelly Gentry.
Great. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Kwanzi to read this into the record.
Thank you, Vice Chair Oliver. This is a request in the Princess Anne District for a subdivision variance on Vaughn Road of property zoned Ag 1 and Ag 2 agricultural. Originally, it was 190 acres put into the city's ARP program with 16 developable rights. Only 13 of those went into the program. The other 3 were carved out to become probably single-family residents, of which one of those is already existing. You can see that in the right-hand corner. This subdivision variance is a matter of the issue of road frontage, because there is no road frontage for the property that's being subdivided to provide for another single-family home. The subdivision variance is required. There's another subdivision variance that is a matter of the easement onto the property, because there is no road, there is no access to a direct access to a public street. Therefore, it has to come in front of Planning Commission and then in front of Council. The staff finds that it is in compliance with the comprehensive plan for the agricultural area, for the rural area, and Planning Commission places this on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda items number 13 through 21. And this will be read into the record. These are for the City of Virginia Beach, and they'll be read by Jimmy McNamara of our Planning Department.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
So agenda items 13 through 21 are amendments to the zoning ordinance to adjust Planning Department review fees associated with the City Council, Planning Commission, Wetlands Board, and Board of Zoning Appeals processes. City staff has worked with our Process Improvement Committee to adjust our practices to better serve our stakeholders. One of the suggestions that came out of this committee was consolidating fees. Previously, the Planning Department had charged separate fees for an application and then for advertising, which resulted as an inconvenience to our customers. Those advertising fees were charged at cost and varied greatly depending on the number of notification letters that were mailed and the size of the advertisement. So with this amendment, the Planning Department now charges one set fee and has combined those 2 fees with the application fee. The amendments to the zoning ordinance are required to adjust the right amount. I would note that agenda item has been amended to reflect that the correct amount for agenda item number 18, changing it from $11.90, as was listed in the staff report, to $810.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, that was the last item on the consent agenda, and I would like to move that to approve consent agenda items number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who said? Seconded by Commissioner Horsley.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, I want to take a moment and thank these 2 ladies, Ms. Stanley and Ms. Sawyer, for the pickles. We don't get a lot of gifts around here. But these look really great. It was a very kind gesture on your part. You didn't have to do it, but I'm going to take them home and eat them. And I think I agree. I think everyone will agree that it was very nice of you to do that. So thank you very much, and good luck. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We are now ready to vote.
Vote is open.
We weren't voting on the pickle.
Mr. Ripley, may I have your vote?
Mr. Ripley, may we have your vote?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
By a 10-0 vote, the commission has approved items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21.
Thank you. Before you all depart, I'd like to thank all of the applicants who had a matter on the consent agenda today. These items will be scheduled for hearing in the City Council's agenda. Well, thank you for your attendance today. The next order of business is our one remaining matter on the agenda, and I'd like to ask the clerk of the commission to call this item, please.
We are item number 12, Burger Busters, applicant Balboa LLC.
Mr. Chairman.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself on this matter. I have I'm under contract on behalf of a seller as the broker with this applicant on another site in North Carolina, so can't participate in it. So I'll go ahead and take my leave and wish you all good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Don't forget your pickles.
I'm not going to forget the pickles.
Only take one.
Don't forget the pickles.
Welcome, Mr. Burdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach attorney representing the applicants and the property owner. With me this afternoon are Mr. Gary Franks, who's the project engineer with Blake Ways, and Will Ellis with Burger Busters. The application is to redevelop an existing commercial parking lot on Pacific Avenue at 29th Street, adjacent to Murphy's restaurant. The plan that is in your package recommended for approval by staff, we have slightly revised, and I'll explain that in a moment. But I've provided each of you with that plan along with letters of support and a petition with hundreds of names of people who are very supportive of this application. I want to thank Christine Gay for her work on this application. It's been we've been working on this for quite some time, as well as the Public Works staff as well with the 29th Street CIP project. The applicants, my clients, went to the PDRC Committee of RAC back in December and were provided with feedback on their proposal and a number of suggestions and items to change, to modify, to improve the plan. We went back in January with all of those changes included in the plan and were approved, or what they acknowledged, voted, it did what they asked us to do. And that's the plan that's in your staff report. In that meeting, Tim Barrow mentioned that he had concerns because we had a 20-foot wide exit that people might try to turn into the exit. So that is the reason why we have narrowed and changed slightly the configuration. This is the way it had been designed, had been configured. And he had expressed concern that traffic coming even though we'll have some signage, that this might be too inviting. So what we've done is, on the plan that you all have, is we've narrowed this to 17 feet, and we've added some additional landscaping and tapered it back against the building as well, just to try to better define this for folks who may be approaching in their vehicle, that is an exit only, and there will be small signage that indicate that as well. But that is the only change in what I handed out to you all this morning versus what is on the plans that are in the report and that are up on the PowerPoint. The access, the way it's shown here, my client believes provides much better, safer, cleaner circulation on the site, and that's why we prefer what is before you versus what we can talk about later with what's happened since that time. We were not invited to, nor did we know anything about the February meeting, the PDRC, that they were going to then start talking about possible other ways to do this, which is a little disconcerting, but we're not going to argue with anybody. Everyone's entitled to their opinions. The plan, if we can show the elevation real quick. This is the result. This is not like any other Taco Bell in the area, to say the least. The This is all facing Pacific Avenue. This is EFS, just different styles. We have lighting out here. It doesn't show up real well on the gray and windows. These are powder-coated aluminum slats up here on this wall. And then this feature is a Core 10 steel. It's a U.S. Steel has the patent on it, and it is made to look a rust color and will maintain that color for a long time, as long as this will be there. But that's a steel feature on the corner there. Now, as the form-based code suggests that we not have any visibility for the parking, there's a 8-foot wall that goes all the way across, so it's an entire solid frontage. That wall is set back with a lot of landscaping, which is on the plan. You can't see it on here. That wall will be EFS to match the building. It'll match same color, same material, but that wall runs all the way here, back down, and all the way across, so that there's no access here. It's all blocked off with all the landscaping. So that's all you see. And you got the sidewalk out on Pacific, additional parking that's being provided on Pacific. There's also parking on Pacific to the south as well. And then we've got landscaping, and we've got the small outdoor seating area can be accessed, doors both facing Pacific and on 29th Street. Parking lot, we've got a sidewalk in here, so you exit your car, you don't have to cross any traffic. You just go right down the sidewalk and across to go into the restaurant, the Taco Bell. Dumpster back here in the back, employee parking, 16 parking spaces on site. The area where the employees would access and leave is, again, because of the wall, it's secure, and it's not at all in any way visible from Pacific Avenue. And this location will get a tremendous amount of foot traffic coming from the east across Pacific Avenue, as well as coming from the north and south down Pacific. And then there will also be some pedestrian traffic coming from the west as well. Our property abuts property to the west. This property here is owned by the Vacos family. You have a letter. They support this application. They've only asked one that we agree to close the drive-through at 1 a.m., which my client, we've agreed that that's exactly what we will do, and we would appreciate if that condition could be modified to so state. Mike Levinson and the Yee family, he represents them. They own the property here, and Murphy's. They also support the application. They have no objection to this application whatsoever. Brad Waitzer and Brian Large are developing townhouse condominiums to the west of the Yee family. They're clients of mine. I represented them on their rezoning that you all approved, or actually it was subdivision variance, I should say, you all approved about 7 months ago. They're in the process of developing now. They support the application as well. And then we have Chicho's to the south. They and their owners have no objection to this application either. There are going to be 13 on-site parking spaces on the north side of 29th Street when it is completed. And as I said, we've got 3 spaces that we're providing in front of the restaurant. There is also on-street parking on Pacific heading south in the next 2 blocks. There is existing parking across the street, and then catty corner is the large city parking garage. And then there's the parking garage on 31st and 32nd Street, enter from 32nd Street as well. So there's ample parking in this area. There'll be lots of, as the McDonald's has and the Wendy's have, there'll be a tremendous amount of foot traffic that will come to this restaurant, and we're not any way inhibiting that because we have no access from Pacific Avenue, as do the other fast food restaurants who are on Pacific, access from Pacific, 21st Street in the case of McDonald's, as well as Pacific, and the Burger King has all of its access on Laskin Road. So ours is off the main thoroughfare and off the area where the most foot traffic will take place, as staff asked us to design this. Excuse me. The conditions that have been recommended, we have no objection to them. They're very extensive. We will irrigate the landscaping. We will have the landscape screening on 29th Street. That'll also be irrigated, and down the parking, in the middle of the parking lot. The only, of all the conditions, The only two that we have a problem with are the condition number 10. A restaurant can go here, a bar can go here under our form-based code with no restrictions, no alternative compliance application open till 2 in the morning, as is the case on either side of us. We therefore don't believe that it is in any way fair or reasonable that our restaurant has to be closed before 2 o'clock at night. We are not serving alcohol, and we gladly accept the condition that no alcohol would be served here. Although I know some of y'all would prefer that that be the other way around. But what this is about, what the alternative compliance is about, is the drive-through. And so we certainly don't have any aversion to having that restricted, as our abutting neighbor to the west asked that it close at 1 o'clock. Just for your information, the Vacos family, they're in the process. They have plans. I've actually seen the plans. They are going to be developing a multi-story apartment building with first floor is parking garage basically underneath, and the building on top, which is 4 stories on top of that. And so they are not concerned about this because they understand it's an urban environment, year-round residents. That's what we've been trying to create at the oceanfront. That's what we have created here, and are creating is a year-round environment. And Pacific Avenue is the arterial highway of the oceanfront. It's the only north-south road we want people driving on. And if we can't put this on Pacific Avenue at the gateway, the Laskin Road gateway, which is actually an intersection of the north end coming down Pacific, Atlantic and Pacific, where all the year-round residents come down, and Laskin Road coming in, that serves all the people who live at the north end, all the people who live back on Laskin Road, and as well as people down Shore Drive who don't want to go all the way down to Hilltop to go to a Taco Bell. So it's for not just the tourists, but it's also for people who live here year-round, which is what we are getting more and more of at the oceanfront. And we all use drive-thrus in bad weather, even if, my wife and I, we'd go to the beach, we'd ride our bikes, but not during, the dead of winter. And we would probably go in and eat, but we might use a drive-thru. A drive-thru is not, the devil, as some people, I guess, think it is. Appreciate it.
Thank
my
you.
time is up. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bourdon? Ron?
This morning, they showed another alternative for curb cuts from 2 to 1. And and I'm indifferent really on either one. Okay, I'll state that, but because I think either one would be fine, either one would work fine as far as I'm concerned. But the parking layout on the angles tend to, in my mind, lend itself with the one-way traffic through an easier maneuver for the vehicle to park, back up, and move in the direction it needs to go. And it also makes them go that way versus backing up and going back the other way. And you might lose a space. You might lose space doing that. But would that be something that you would be able to consider?
I'm sure my client would be willing to consider, looking at doing that. And if this winds up, which we don't think this plan is as good, it loses 2 parking spaces, and we think it will be hard on people to understand the circulation and think there'll be some conflicts internally. But we certainly, will look at doing some angle. With the plan we have with the 14 spaces, we don't believe there'll be any problem anybody maneuvering in or out. But I do appreciate what you're saying. We would take that, concern back, and if council agrees that they want angled parking, then that's what we'll do. I mean, we're going to be at their mercy.
Well, as far as a recommendation coming out of here, would that upset you? I mean, if it does, it does.
It's not going to upset anyone. No. I mean,
Okay,
if that's, it's not going to upset us.
David?
Mr. Bourdon, going to this, I understand what you're talking about, but with traffic engineering coming, it's a safety issue more than anything, having one curb cut. I don't understand. To me, it's a circle. If anybody can't get that to get in and out of, I don't understand why that wouldn't be a problem.
All right, well, here, this isn't,
okay.
I'm not
sure,
going to argue.
I want to hear.
Give you the point of view. If we can go back to the one, okay. here you have vehicles coming in, all right, where folks are trying to come out from the drive-through, and/or not having, just people who've parked and eaten. So they've got to come here and cut across to get out in very close proximity to where vehicles will be coming in. It's basically and you wouldn't, people aren't going to have that expectation because you don't see this. I mean, the design we have, we don't really see that often, but I've been in something similar. This, because you've got people having to cross over when vehicles are coming out, coming in, and then try to maneuver over here and get out versus just slide out here and block the entrance, which is, again, something that could happen. That's the concern, is this is a tight configuration and a unusual one that people aren't going to be at all used to. And that's the reason why we believe the other one will create far fewer conflicts. Granted, the conflicts here to some degree will be on site, but if they occur, if there's a fender bender, then it's going to potentially cause some backup into the road. So again, we're not talking about night and day here. We're talking about grades, but we don't believe that that's the best way to develop the property from a circulation on-site perspective. And I recognize there's a balance between different things that we're all trying to balance to figure out, what the best way to do it is. So it's not an argument, but that is our feeling that this will have bigger issues than the other will have, especially if we narrow the exit so that it avoids, or reduces any chance that somebody not paying attention tries to enter to the exit.
Any other questions for Mr. Bourdon? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have one speaker in opposition.
Did I mention the other condition about the 25 years or 15 years? I didn't. I'm sorry. That last condition is not one that we can accept because we have a 25-year, Burger Busters has a 25-year land lease and a 25-year franchise agreement on its desk with Taco Bell. So we can agree to 25 years, but we would not be able to agree to a 15-year restriction on the drive-through.
Thank you.
We have one speaker in opposition, Ms. Pope.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Bernice Pope. For the record, I am a property owner at Old Beach Village, and I am a member at the PDRC, which I'm not representing PDRC at this meeting. I am opposed to a drive-through restaurant on that corner of 29th Street and Pacific Avenue for several reasons. One, I'd like to mention that Section 3.5.3.8 of the Form-Based Code requires that a drive-through facility not be visible from the right-of-way. While they have located the ordering kiosk behind a screening wall and building, it will still be visible as well the queued vehicles from 29th Street. Per Chapter 6 of the Form-Based Code, 23 parking spaces are required for the proposed footprint. Only 16 spaces are proposed as part of the request for special exception for alternative compliance. One of the other big reasons is that more than 70 dwelling units are located on this block at this time. And of course, there are 100 condos at Old Beach Village at this time that community has sent in a letter of opposition on this project. Also, the property in front of Harris Teeter is going to be developed with apartments. That'll be a couple hundred apartments. They mentioned that the development of the new condos are going to be there. This is primarily a residential neighborhood. The drive-through facilities by nature have a high turnover of vehicles. Traffic will spill onto Arctic Avenue and avoid dealing with Pacific Avenue for both north and south vehicles. This will negatively impact Old Beach and the existing proposed dwellings at the north of 30th Street. we should follow the code more precisely and only permit drive-throughs in a parking structure with mixed-use buildings. It is my understanding that the reason that a drive-through was permitted in the form-based code as it currently reads is that it states that it's in a structured parking garage. That would make it not totally visible. That's the reason why it was approved for the Monarch Bank on 31st Street. This is clearly something that is not in a parking garage. It is not really something that the form-based code is looking for with pedestrian friendly, walkable, bikeable pedestrian traffic. So the fact that a drive-through, no matter what they try to do with the plan, it's still going to have these cars circulating throughout. It's going to be open late at night with traffic and the noise from the kiosk and everything else from. So it's something, that's the reason why the PDRC wants to take another look at the form-based code as to see whether there could be some changes made down the road with maybe not having that option. So I just kind of am very leery about allowing a drive-through at this particular time because it's something, number one, that is really not what we're looking for at the beach. Especially, it's not the place for a drive-through. Drive-throughs, there is places that would be more appropriate for Taco Bell to locate. Nobody is really opposed to a Taco Bell. They're just opposed to the drive-through.
Any questions of Ms. Pope? Thank you.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate Bernice's perspective as a resident of Bay Colony. The beach, the resort is not, you can use the term residential neighborhood, but I would suggest to you that a residential neighborhood in some people's mind conjures up Bay Colony, Lincoln Park, even the North End, Lindley, Birdneck Point. This is a urban resort that we're creating with high-density residential components, such as apartments that Bruce Thompson, beautiful apartments he's built that are on top of
Summer House.
Yes, it's Summer House, but it's on top of the wing place,
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Buffalo Wild Wings, and a lot of other places that are open until 2 o'clock in the morning. And we have Smart Mouth Brewery right across from the Summer House. We've got clients of mine that are buying properties in the Sea Pines area, right in the neighborhood or across the street from Smart Mouth. And the Brian Large built townhouses directly behind the drive-through at Burger King that sold for very substantial prices, and the people are perfectly happy living there. We've got to recognize that, this isn't the typical suburban neighborhood, not by any stretch of the imagination. This is something that in our resort we need. There's a lot of demand for it, and it's not just by people who come here, it's by people who live here and will live here. And by the time this gets to council, I expect we'll probably have quite a few more 100 signatures than the 500 plus that you have today. Now, there needs to be regulation, but I would disagree with Ms. Pope. I don't think there's a better place at the ocean front than here for this use. This is at the gateway. That's why we have Harris Teeter and Farm Fresh, both of those in this gateway. And this is on Pacific Avenue. Other than the apartments over the iFly that the Breeden companies have built, I'm not aware of anybody building multifamily right on Pacific Avenue other than Mr. Thompson, and he had a big old piece of property to do it on. This is just a small piece of property. That's not it. So they're really, this is an ideal use in this location because it will capture traffic from the people who live here at the north end, people who live down Laskin Road coming to the beach. They're going to park in the parking garage, and this is somewhere that's walkable It's somewhere my wife and I would come up here, we'd ride our bikes down to the PACC all the time, and, it's someplace we ride our bikes to Mojitos a block away on Pacific Avenue, but it's on Pacific Avenue. No one's suggesting that it should happen down 29th Street to the west, but Pacific Avenue is not a great location for it, and having a parking garage there, a parking lot there, it's all traffic oriented there, and it's not anything attractive. It's not anything that serves much of a purpose, other than we've needed it as transitionally while we build these parking garages. But I disagree with the idea that there are better places. I frankly think there is no better place than this. Possibly 32nd Street, but that's at the other entrance to the gateway, but that's not allowed under the form-based code. That's one of the restricted areas. We certainly don't want to see it at 17th Street. We're not going to see it at 19th Street. So this is really the best place for it. It's something that the resort absolutely needs. It's missing. There's none. It's the leading, quick food vendor that's out there that we don't have, and there's demand for it. And we think that we have a respectable local owner of both the property and the company that are going to be somebody that, if there are issues or problems, you'll be able to get to them. It's not somebody from out of town or out of state.
Thank you, Mr. Burdon. Any questions of Mr. Burdon? Thank you. Being no speakers, we'll close the public hearing and open the commission up to comments and questions and dialogue amongst ourselves. Mr. Weiner.
I'll start. Mr. Lemon, can I ask you a question, please? I know quite a few times we go against what staff says and recommends, but when it comes to traffic engineering, I tend to listen a little bit closer. Nothing, staff does a great job, but your thoughts on that one cut? And I understand when Mr. Burdon's talking about the cars crisscrossing, leaving the drive-through, coming out, and the cars going in. What is your thoughts on that? Or traffic engineering's thoughts on that?
Like he said, it kind of pushes the conflict to the interior of the site versus on the public roadway. So we'd much rather see that type of an issue on site rather than in the public right of way. So that's what we represent.
And your thoughts about the one cut instead of two? Curb cut.
Originally we said that we could live with the two. We didn't know that the option was there for this one. If we're putting the two in front of us to say which one do we feel is safer and in the better interest of the public, we would choose this option here. But we did originally say that the other one met the minimum standards, albeit there's one substandard thing about it, which is that the one-way pattern is kind of reversed. Usually you come in the first entrance and you go out, you come in on the right and you go out on the right. This one would be, kind of reversed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but given the two options, in the interest of the public, this is the option that we would choose.
Okay.
Because it does put the conflict interior rather than exterior.
Can I ask
Ron, sure.
Ask him something. Well, so what's the movement you prefer? Is it, if you were coming out from the drive-through or coming around from after parking, do you want them to come across the lane there and then come out? Is that what you're looking for them to do?
Yes.
In other words, you don't want them just make a sharp, hold the curb to the east, because then now you're conflicting with traffic coming in. So it's a little bit of confusion. You think?
The exiting traffic here, and again, we don't get too much, traffic engineering doesn't get too much internal circulation, only as it affects the public right-of-way, because we're not designing the interior and the circulation patterns for them. But if they did wait for vehicles to come around the corner here, they would queue up here to wait to get out, whether they're going left or they're going right. We like this location for the exiting because it's further away from Pacific Avenue, and it's safer because it takes the conflict away from closer to the intersection to further back interior to the block.
So. I get that. It seems a little confusing to me right there, but if you had as the way the applicant has drawn it, I mean, is that you can work with that?
It still meets the minimum requirements of the city. It meets the bare minimum.
Okay.
And generally with a high turnover restaurant like this, we try to get a little better than just the minimums, but it does meet the minimums.
It meets what minimum does it meet?
I believe that we looked at this, and 25 feet is the minimum separation between the entrance and the corner. And like I said, it's 25-foot minimum. And
Okay, that's what I thought you meant, but I wasn't sure.
yes, sir. But, you know, again, it's a high turnover site. We'd like to see more than the minimum, but
Commissioner Oliver and then Commissioner Horton.
So Rick, when we talk about the minimum here from corner to the curb cut, the numbers for your minimum, that's just for a typical corner street traffic load, not like June, July, and August in Virginia Beach. I mean, that's a different intensity, especially with the traffic light about a block and a half north of that, where you've got 2 traffic lights north of that for backing up, causing, you know, the traffic on Pacific as it starts bottlenecking right there.
right. You know, to me, the summer months are a little heavier on Pacific than
A
the
lot,
15,000 that we
A
show
lot
in the
heavier.
report as far as daily traffic on Pacific. 29th Street is not a very heavily traveled street, so there's not a whole lot of cars that turn up that street anyway, except to go to the businesses that are on that street. So it's not a big cut-through street between Arctic and Pacific Avenue, is what I'm trying to say. So it doesn't see a lot more summer traffic than it does winter traffic on 29th Street. But Pacific Avenue definitely is a little busier in the summer. And the fact that it's high turnover, meaning cars are constantly coming in and out, does, you know, give us a little bit of concern with using just the bare minimums.
Don?
Rick, it just looks to me like looking at the plan that Mr. Perdon gave us compared to the other plan we saw. I do like the parking places at an angle, spaces. I think that's a good amenity. But looks like to me that this is a far simpler and less confusing route for the people coming in. They go around and they go straight out versus coming in and going around and then having to work their way back through the incoming traffic to get out. Looks like to me there'd be far less confusion to go straight out with the 2 curb cuts.
Again, the reason that it may be simpler for the traffic on the interior of the site, but Public Works Traffic Engineering, we're concerned with which options can be better for the motoring public and for the public right-of-way. And aside from the Taco Bell customers, we feel like having this egress point further back away from Pacific Avenue is the better of the 2 options. I'm not saying that this isn't a simpler one for the Taco Bell patrons, but my job's not to recommend what's best for Taco Bell. My job is to recommend what's best for the city. The public right-of-way, that's fair.
Well, I'll accept that, I guess. But I still think that this looks like a far simpler traffic pattern than this one.
You know, when they're faced with no other situation except for figuring out that they've got to come out here, I mean, there's nothing else for them to do. It's not like there's anything else they can do. They've got their tacos and they're sitting here. They're going to get out. I mean,
Unless you give them a mojito.
You said no alcohol.
I just think there's something that can be done to that entrance, the other one, to deter people from wanting to turn in there. And I just think the other one is by far a simpler deal. And I think you'll have less fender benders and whatever, whether they own the Taco Bell property or on the city property.
Right. I will say that the city traffic engineer normally does not like one-way access points. He did take a look at this and say that if we did the 2 one-way access points, that he would be okay with it. Again, that was before this option. We would prefer this option versus, you know, the 2 entrance option.
Okay, thank you.
Looking still at the one entrance option, exit option that we're looking at there, it doesn't matter to you which side becomes the exit side and which side is the entrance side as far as the design.
In general, cars are going to hug the curb. You're going to stay on the right side of the road. We'd rather not have the cars flip-flop.
Well, I'm saying, suppose they said, well, we're just going to keep them on the inside track there, and as far as exiting and enter on the left side of that opening.
That would be chaos, because cars generally hug the inside, and when you exit to the outside. You always stay on the right. The only one I know of is McDonald's.
So if we go with that, we need to make that a condition.
Oh,
As
absolutely.
to how it's set up?
Sure, it's driver expectation.
Okay.
You will end up with safety issues if you do that. McDonald's on Pacific Avenue, not ideal, but they've got it set up just like that, and you could go out and see problems with cars turning in and almost hitting people coming out.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because of the drive-through. But that's grandfathered in, it's old.
Right.
Any other questions for Mr. Lohman? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions and comments from the commission?
So I wondered if I could ask Christina a question or two.
You may.
Can you clarify again for me the special exemption and what that is supposed to mean when we apply it? Is that a matter of providing a benefit to the area through the development? Just so I can better understand how this complies with the expectations of that. I know you've listed them.
The special exception for alternative compliance is there to give developers an opportunity to provide a development that is above and beyond standards, but may deviate from the prescribed criteria, because the form-based code does have more prescribed criteria than your standard zoning district, residential or business. In the staff report in front of you, and in section 7.3 of the form-based code, there are specific review provisions for alternative compliance. It talks to being functionally and physically integrated into the surrounding area, supporting multimodal transportation, is consistent with the intent of the regulations of the street frontage, advances the goals and objectives of the parking strategy, advances the goals and objectives of the resort area strategic action plan, and creates a built environment that is in scale with pedestrian-oriented activities and provides visual interest and orientation for pedestrians. And then also contributes to a mix of uses in the area that are compatible with each other and work together to create a memorable and successful place.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, only in that I find a number of them, which is just generally the way it works, a little subjective, in that I'm not sure I find what's presented in front of us as adding to the memorable aspect of the area. And I understand it being the gateway. That also is a concern of mine, because I'm not necessarily sure we want the gateway to be automatically going in opposition to the plans for the area in general. So that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. You also write in here that the prescribed criteria and limited use provisions typically require a much larger site than the subject property. Also, according to the applicant, the market currently does not support the level of improvements required by the limited use provisions. Considering the previous mentioned issues, the subject site is located within the area, except for the fact that the limited use provisions weren't applied. So some things have been done that I guess you've balanced out there?
Yes.
Limited use provisions have not been met, but something else has been done that allows for that to be.
What we're saying is if you are in support of granting the special exception to that criteria that they're not meeting, the design, the site layout that they are proposing does come further to balance the pedestrian, prioritize the pedestrian a bit more. It does provide a built environment that's more in keeping with the area than that standard, typical suburban drive-through layout would be.
Okay. So I guess for me, I don't know that it provides for that pedestrian aspect that seems to be a goal. And I'm concerned about that safety issue with the curb cuts, the 2 curb cuts. That's a concern of mine, and listening to Rick, it continues to be a concern for me. I also think that, you know, we create some guidelines for an area that are pretty specific and have great value to the area. I do feel as though we've got 2 groups that came forward with opposition who are most directly affected by it. And for me, those are concerns. Those are big concerns. So I'm not leaning in the direction of recommending approval on this one at the moment.
Ron?
Yeah, well, I beg to differ, because I think the use of the site, it's this side of Pacific Avenue, it's not an easy area to develop, and you don't see any residential, as I think the counselor pointed out. The alternative provisions that were put into the code were intended to try to, if you had an application come in, how could you make it so that it looked and met those criteria that's in the plan? And I think they have done that. They've pulled the building up close. It has a tall feeling to it, and it's urban feeling, and they've blocked the view of any of the you have the right. I think we heard somebody say. I think Ms. Pope said that it had to be in a parking garage, but it could be in a parking garage or be located in the block interior is the other exception, and that's what this is. And they've managed to, I think, buffer it and screen it very well. I think the activity up on the road with the outside patio makes sense, and I think that if you slant the parking, I would like to see that done. But I think the two curb cuts is the easier of. It'll make the site a very simple site to work, and I think I heard Mr. Lohman say that either one would work. He'd rather have one over the other. But prior to seeing that, I think they were pretty much okay with that. And then the way this new site plan this was brought into us this morning, it even buffers the view from 29th Street a little bit more, so that really you're not really seeing it from only that area, and it's really a reduced area on 29th Street. So I'm inclined to think that I think the staff has worked real hard with the applicant. Looks like the applicant's worked real hard to try to meet the intent of the code, and I think he's there, and I think it's a good use, and I think it's you don't see a lot of these down on the resort area, and if they do come down, they have to come through this process, and it's not an easy process to get through. So I think this is okay, and I'm going to support it, with with the exception of the slanting the parking.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Inman?
On the van trip that we did last week, we went to the site to look at it closely, and I was struck by the fact of the apartment buildings that have one that's in existence now, and the other that's in existence is not complete construction. There's 3 or 4 story apartments that are not on the immediately adjacent property, but certainly within hearing of the proposed Taco Bell. And my concern about this solely is focused on the drive-through aspect of it. It's not the restaurant. Right. It's a commercial district. It's a commercial area on both sides on Pacific Avenue. It's a great place for a restaurant. It's not a great place for a drive-through with the outdoor activity, the outdoor noise that goes along with having a drive-through. And I don't think I'd want to be renting an apartment that was on the east end of either of those buildings if there's going to be a drive-through restaurant on that site. I realize there's a little property in between. Not sure why they'd be supporting a drive-through with the residentially zoned property. Of course, it may not stay residential, I suppose. So I don't think it's advancing the cause of the form-based code to introduce this type of use on this piece of property, which will perhaps lead others to think, well, if they can have it there, we can have it. I mean, form-based code may be not as tough as we thought it was. Reference to the Burger King that's been there quite some time, it's pretty much surrounded by commercial, except for the 6 or 8 townhouses that came after it was already there as a drive-through. The drive-through in that particular case is on the east side, and the townhouses that Mr. Badon referred to are on the north side of that site, the Burger King site. it's just, I think there's a compatibility issue, and there's, with what's now being built there and occupied, is already occupied on the close by apartment properties, and I think it does not advance the form-based code. As stated in the evaluation, you know, what we're supposed to be doing here is, I had it tagged here before, but it's to promote walking and uses that involve other than the automobile. Well, this is promoting the use of the automobile, basically. And I just don't think it's a good planning decision on our part to introduce this drive-through.
Jack?
I think a lot of great work has gone into this application. I mean, I think that the wall to screen the actual drive-through, and the windows, you know, a lot of landscaping. I mean, I think a lot of good work. I'm sure it hasn't been easy, you know, not an easy process, but it's also not easy to establish the goals. You know, to establish, you know, the vision of the form-based code and to see it through. So, you know, I think that it's, you know, in my opinion, that, you know, that, you know, we'd maintain that vision. And I think that, you know, I can agree with Mike on, you know, his thoughts on that.
David?
We learned this morning that there's, 3 locations in the city that are stipulations and regulations on drive-throughs. And they are permitted, but there are regulations. You can have some, as long as you meet the regulations, and in my opinion, this doesn't meet the regulations on the drive-through. But there's more to it than that. There's holes in this that I don't like. The time frame, midnight, the 15-year, the curb cut. I understand where Mr. Badon's coming. That's a headache, and I understand, Ron, what you're saying. That is the most simple way to come in and out. But I don't think we don't have a complete package here, unless we have it, because with all this here and also the drive-through, I don't feel like I can support it.
Anybody else have any comments? You want to speak? This is a case, to me, I think the applicant's done a great job of working with the staff, and the staff has come up with a plan that they've actually supported. I think this is a case where the form-based code needs serious attention. This is a commercial site on a commercial road. The people that live behind it are not complaining. Generally, if we have neighborhoods that don't like this stuff, they don't hesitate coming out and making a lot of racket. We didn't have this on this case. And again, it's a commercial site on a busy commercial road, and they've done a great job of essentially hiding the drive-in window behind the building. And for all intents and purposes, this drive-in window is not going to create any problem for Pacific Avenue, and it's going to enhance the development of the site, and it's going to add business to this part of the city. So I'm in favor of it. I'm more in favor of it because it's brought up another weakness in our form-based code. It was a one-size-fits-all. We'll throw it on this part of the city, and every time we hear these almost once a month, there's somebody trying to get away or get around the form-based code that really doesn't work well. And I think this is a case where it doesn't work well. The applicant has done an outstanding job of showing how they can just about fit into the site without making it an ugly, detrimental site to the city. So I'm in favor of it. I have mixed feelings about the traffic. And it would be nice if we could fix it so that there was one entrance and one exit, but I think that creates more problems for the tenant than it does the city. So anyway.
Can I add something?
Sure.
And I agree with you 100%. They've done a great job. I think it's nothing about the building at all. It looks great. I think it would be good on the site. And, I'm kind of wishy-washy on the drive-through, but it doesn't meet the regulations and what's in the form-based code. But there's too many holes in this. There's too many things that the applicant and staff are disagreeing with. And, I mean, if we want to defer this, let them work that out and bring it back, I'm good with that, trying to do that. But I just don't think, I can't pass it through just because there's too many holes in it. They haven't worked things out, it's not been worked out together.
Well, would you make a motion that we ask the applicant, do you want to up and down today? You want us to give you time? Sure. Please approach the.
To my knowledge, the only thing that we aren't in agreement on is the 15-year versus the 25-year, and I don't know that staff has any opposition to the restaurant being open until 2 in the morning. So other than any restaurant,
I think it was midnight.
The restaurant being open until 2 in the morning?
No, the drive-through at midnight.
Right.
Drive-through to be closed at
Right.
midnight.
The drive-through item, because all of the adjacent property owners support the application. There's no one who doesn't, who's adjacent to the property. If, we would, if you want to condition it on the one entrance versus the two, we're not going to leave here unhappy. We were approved to do 2. We thought 2 made more sense. That's why I said we're not arguing with you. It's up to the commission. And so that's not a disagreement if you're talking about the one entrance versus 2. That's just, we think 2 will work better. The drive-through, so I guess there's a disagreement between whether it closes at midnight or 1 o'clock, and then the 25 years versus the 15 years that it has to go away. Those 2 we aren't going to be able to agree upon. So you all can make a motion to recommend or to deny, and the recommendation can have whatever conditions you want to have. But I don't agree with you that there are a lot of things that I think it's pretty focused myself. I think it's just simply the drive-through hours, because I think the restaurant was not intended, because any restaurant can be open down there 24 hours a day. There's no restriction on any restaurant. So it's a drive-through, whether it's at 1 a.m., which we agreed to with the adjacent property owners, with the other restaurants next to us, both open till 2, and then the years because we have a 25-year lease. But I think that's it that we have disagreement on. So I'd like to have a vote, hopefully, to approve it, and whichever entrance configuration you all think is better, we're not going to leave here unhappy with. We're just, as I said to you, we're just pointing out why we thought one would be better than the other, and I don't disagree with what Rick had to say either. I think it was a fair statement.
Don?
Mr. Chairman, I know we discussed the 15-year deal this morning, and I'm not a big fan of the 15-year deal myself. In fact, I would rather eliminate any years at all on the condition, not put any year limit on it. I think that does handicap the owners and the business itself. And so far as the 12 versus 1 o'clock, I mean, it's going to be hard. I guess someone can go ahead and shut a gate at 12 o'clock and say everybody else has got to not go the other way. So I really doesn't make a difference to me on that one. The 1 versus 2 entrances, curb cuts. Mr. Burdon says that they can live with either or, and I personally think the 2 is better than 1. But I mean that's immaterial either way. So I would tend to support the application, and so we can move it along, and take the years out completely. I think the 25. I mean, if you want to put 25 years in that, so be it. But I think we could just eliminate the years entirely, and this, so far as the 12 versus 1, I mean, I can agree to either one. If we want to leave it at the 12 and they can't agree with it when they get to council, they can hassle it out at that point. But
Are you making a motion?
yes, sir, I'm making a motion to that effect. We approve it.
So Mr. Horsley's motion is to recommend approval of the application with 1 entrance or 2 entrances?
I think we better go with 1.
1 entrance, change the parking, angle the parking?
Yes, sir.
And eliminate the 15-year requirement and change the hours to midnight. Close the drive-in window at midnight. Any questions on that, Matt?
I'll second.
And Ron second.
Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion to deny the application.
Okay, in Robert's Rules of Order, we have a second for that.
Right.
Well, you've made a motion.
I've made a motion.
Do we have a second for that?
I'll second it.
You'll second that, so we vote on the second one first, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
This
Madam
is a
Secret-
motion to deny the application. If you vote for yes, you're voting for denial.
We vote yes if we're voting for denial. Okay.
Okay? So if you vote yes, you're voting for denial.
The vote is open.
By a 5-4 vote, the commission denies the application of Burger Busters.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. Since that is our last case to be heard today, is there any more business that anyone wants to bring up to the planning commission?
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment. I've been around a pretty long time, and I've known Stephen White a long time, and I'd be remiss if I didn't publicly say that I've enjoyed working with him over the past, ever how many years it is, Stephen, and they go a long ways, and I've never known Stephen to be anything but very professional in his workings with the planning staff, and I certainly appreciate all what he's done for the Planning Commission in all these years and for the city of Virginia Beach. Now, thank you, Stephen.
With that, the meeting is adjourned.
Don't forget your pickles.
Oh, yeah.
Pickles.
Pickles.
Thank you.